Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, dear students. Today, inshallah, we're going to talk about chapter 6 or network layer. This chapter is divided into four major sections. The first one, we're going to talk about the network layer protocols. We're going to summarize the issues related to the Internet Protocol or IP, both version 4 and version 6. In section 2, we're going to talk about the operation of routing and how it's done inside the router. And in the section 3, we're going to talk about the routers and how they are designed from inside. And then section 4, we're going to learn how to configure a Cisco router, and this part is going to be covered in the lab. So to start, the network layer is used to perform the delivery of the packets that are coming from the source and route this packet according to certain criteria that we will learn about, to route this packet from one network to another network that might be a remote network on the other side. So the main functions that summarize the operation of the network layer is that the network layer encapsulates the incoming segments from the transport layer, and it encapsulates that into what we call an IP packet, which adds an IP header to it, and then it sends that on the data link layer, and then when this packet arrives to the router will then use the destination IP address to perform what we call routing, and then when it comes to the receiver will decapsulate the frame into an IP packet and then send that up in the stack to the application. So the main functionality of the network layer is the addressing of the end devices. So it deals with the end device IP address, and it performs the routing operation, which we will talk about. And of course, encapsulation and decapsulation is part of every layer in the layer stack, as we have mentioned before. So the most common two internet protocols are, of course, version 4 and version 6, which will be summarized in this section, and we'll talk about the difference between the two. Another thing to notice here is that there are some other network layer protocols like IPX and AppleTalk and so on, which are becoming obsolete and they are not being used anymore. So the Internet Protocol again is used to encapsulate the segments into IP packets and send that from one source router to another remote router. In doing that, it sends these IP packets sequentially, and these IP packets are they look like a letter that's being sent from one location to another. So these IP packets can be sent with different characteristics, whether with some reliability, some guarantees on the delivery, and so on and so forth. Well, IP protocol supports these three major characteristics. First, it's connectionless, in which case it does not establish any connection between the source router and the destination router, and that has some consequences. The first thing is that it's best effort, in which case it does not guarantee the delivery of the IP packets, and also it's media independent, in which case it doesn't really deal with medium issues, and it doesn't care which medium is being used because this is the functionality of the network access layer, as we have explained before. So we'll explain these three major characteristics for IP protocol. So first, the IP protocol is connectionless, which means that it works similarly to a mail letter which we send through the normal mail service, with no guarantees on it has that there is a receiver on the other side, or if the letter is arrived, or if the receiver can read actually the letter. So there's no possibility for the source who is sending this letter to know that the letter is has actually arrived to the receiver, and if the receiver has actually read it. There's also no way for the receiver to know when the letter is coming. This is because the end-to-end path of that letter has not been established before sending the letter. So the source, when it has an IP packet, it sends the packet right away on the network, and the routers will route this according to the destination IP address, and there's no guarantee that this IP packet will arrive to the receiver, and there is no way for the receiver to figure out when the IP packet is coming, because there's no end-to-end connection. The second characteristic is that it's best effort. Because the router routes the packet locally based on the IP address, there might be some scenarios where these routers might route the packets in a wrong way, in which case the packet goes and circulates amongst the routers, and it never gets delivered to the destination router. Or there might be some cases when the router actually does not find the destination IP address in the table, in which case it drops the packet. In both these scenarios, some packets may be lost when they arrive on the destination router, and in that case, best effort talks about the fact that there is no guarantees from the IP layer that these packets will arrive on the destination side. So IP address in general is best effort, in which case it does not guarantee the delivery of these packets to the destination router. The third and last characteristic is that the IP protocol is medium independent, which means that IP does not deal with the medium issues, and it does not care whether this medium is copper or this medium is serial point-to-point or this medium is fiber optics. It doesn't actually deal with the issues of the medium, because this is the functionality of the network access layer, as we have explained before. One important characteristic, though, that the router or the network layer cares about is the fact that each of these types of media, it has maximum transmission unit that limits the size of the frame that can flow over this medium. So each medium has some limitation on the size of the frame that it can flow through this medium. So in which case, some of these routers along the way, they may have to fragment or divide the IP packet into multiple segments to accommodate the lower maximum transmission unit on some of these medium. In which case, as part of the network layer, it has to perform some fragmentation to the incoming IP packet. So that's the only issue that at which the router will deal with some medium-specific issues. The other two functionalities for the network layer protocol is that it performs the encapsulation at the source node, and of course the decapsulation on the receiving side.